The stars above Earth had always seemed peaceful, distant, and unchanging. On this particular morning in 2247, that peace shattered forever. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESC Defiant, his coffee growing cold in his hand as he stared at the view screen. His ship had been on routine patrol near Earth's outer defense perimeter when the sensors went crazy. Now hanging in space before him were ships unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They had simply appeared, materializing out of nothing as if reality itself had torn open to let them through. The largest vessel dwarfed anything humans had built. It stretched for miles, a crystalline structure that seemed to bend light around itself. Smaller ships surrounded it in perfect geometric formations, their hulls shimmering with colors that hurt to look at directly. Jake had been in space for 15 years. He had seen asteroid impacts, solar flares, and the raw beauty of distant nebulas. Nothing had prepared him for this. Lieutenant Amy Harris worked frantically at her station, her fingers dancing across controls as she tried to make sense of the incoming transmissions. She was young, barely 28, but she had a gift for languages that had made her invaluable to the communications team. Right now her face was pale with concentration and something that looked like fear. "Commander, I'm getting a signal," she said, her voice tight. "It's translating automatically. Whatever they're using, it's incredibly advanced. It's learning our language as we speak." Jake set down his coffee. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. This was it. Humanity's first contact with alien life. Every child dreamed about this moment. Every scientist had theorized about it. But in all those dreams and theories, humanity had always been ready. They had always been equals. Looking at the fleet before him, Jake knew they were neither. The view screen flickered and an image appeared. The being that looked back at them was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. It stood at least 9 feet tall, its body composed of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through it in patterns that might have been thoughts or emotions. When it spoke, its voice echoed with harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Vexthran, 4th Ambassador of the Galactic Council," the being said. Each word was perfectly pronounced, eerily human in its cadence. "We address the species known as humanity. Your existence has been detected. Your expansion into space has been noted. Your technology has been evaluated." Jake glanced at Amy, who was recording everything. She nodded slightly, encouraging him to respond. He took a breath and stepped forward, positioning himself in view of the camera. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Space Command vessel Defiant. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to our solar system. We hope this can be the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples." The crystalline being tilted its head in a gesture that might have been amusement. "Peace is the natural state of all species under Council guidance. You will find our methods bring order to chaos, purpose to confusion. For 12,000 of your years, we have maintained stability across 17 systems. Today we extend our protection to Earth." Something in the way Vexthran said protection made Jake's skin crawl. Amy caught it too. She was working at her secondary console, running linguistic analysis on the transmission. When she looked up, her expression told him everything he needed to know. "Commander, there are layers to this communication," she whispered. "Subtext in the harmonic frequencies. They're not offering partnership. This is a claim of ownership." Before Jake could respond, Vexthran continued. "The terms of your integration are simple and non-negotiable. First, all military vessels will be decommissioned, and their weapons systems transferred to Council authority. Second, your research into faster-than-light travel will be surrendered. Such technology in the hands of an unguided species presents unacceptable risks. Third, you will accept the appointment of a council governor to oversee Earth's transition into proper galactic society." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt the eyes of his crew on him, waiting for his response. These weren't terms of friendship. This was a surrendered demand delivered with diplomatic words. Captain Ben Cross, commander of Earth's orbital defense network, appeared on a secondary screen. His weathered face was grim. "Morrison, are you seeing this? We're getting the same transmission on every channel. They're broadcasting this to the entire planet." Jake nodded. Down on Earth, billions of people were watching this moment unfold. President Linda Grant would be convening the United Earth Assembly right now, trying to figure out how to respond to an ultimatum from beings who had just proven they could appear anywhere they wanted, without warning. "Ambassador Vexthran," Jake said carefully, "humanity appreciates the Council's interest in our development. However, we are a sovereign species. We make our own decisions about our future. We would be happy to establish diplomatic relations, to learn from you and share what we know, but we cannot accept terms that would end our independence. The crystalline being's internal light patterns shifted. If Jake had to guess, he would say it was experiencing something like surprise. You misunderstand your position. The Council does not offer choices to juvenile species. You lack the maturity to govern yourselves responsibly. Already your weapons development has exceeded safe parameters. Your political systems are fragmented and inefficient. Without guidance, you will inevitably destroy yourselves or threaten others. We have seen this pattern countless times. Then you've never met humans, Jake said quietly. At the science station, Dr. Henry Blake had been silent until now. He was a physicist, brilliant but usually quiet, more comfortable with equations than confrontations. But now he was leaning forward, his eyes locked on a data stream running across his screen. "Commander," he said urgently, "they didn't just send us a message. There's encrypted data buried in the transmission, coordinates, locations, every human settlement, military base, research facility, mining operation, everything. They've been watching us for a while. This isn't first contact. This is a reconnaissance report." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. The Council hadn't just found humanity. They had been studying them, cataloging their strengths and weaknesses, identifying targets. This whole transmission was probably the final step before invasion. "How long would you estimate they've been observing us?" Jake asked. Henry's fingers flew across his console. "Based on the data accuracy, at least 6 months. Maybe longer, 6 months. While humanity had been dreaming of the stars had been watching them, planning their subjugation." Captain Ben Cross spoke up from his screen. "Morrison, I'm getting word from the President. She wants a direct channel to the Council, but she also wants you to know that Defense Protocol 7 is being activated. Whatever happens next, we're not going down without a fight." Jake knew what Protocol 7 meant. Every military vessel in the solar system would be armed and ready. Civilian populations would begin evacuating from vulnerable orbital stations. Experimental weapons that had never been field-tested would be prepared for deployment. Humanity was preparing for war against an enemy they didn't understand, with technology they couldn't match. "Ambassador Vexthran," Jake said, forcing his voice to remain calm, "humanity needs time to consider your terms. This is a decision that affects our entire species. We request a period of discussion." The crystalline being's light patterns flickered rapidly. "You have 72 of your hours. At the end of this period, you will submit to Council authority or face corrective measures. We do not make this offer lightly. Resistance is both futile and illogical. We are trying to save you from yourselves." The transmission ended abruptly. The fleet remained, hanging in space like a sword suspended over Earth's head. Amy was already analyzing the recording, breaking down every nuance of the communication. Captain Cross was coordinating with Ground Command. Dr. Blake was trying to decrypt more of the hidden data. Everyone had a task, a purpose, something to focus on besides the crushing weight of what they had just learned. Jake stood at the center of the bridge, looking at the alien fleet on the view screen. They were beautiful in a way. Perfect formations advanced beyond human comprehension, representing an authority that had ruled for thousands of years. They expected humanity to bow, to accept their place as children being guided by wise elders. But humans had a long history of rejecting authority they didn't choose, of fighting for their right to make their own mistakes, chart their own course, win their own victories. The Council was about to learn something that every empire in human history had eventually discovered. There was nothing more dangerous than free people told they must surrender their freedom. Communications. "Open a channel to Earth Command," Jake ordered. "Let's give the President our report. And then let's figure out how a bunch of stubborn humans are going to tell an ancient alien empire exactly where they can stick their corrective measures." Amy allowed herself a small smile as she opened the channel. "Channel open, Commander. Earth Command is standing by." Jake took a breath. 72 hours. 3 days to figure out how to stand against beings who had ruled the stars for longer than human civilization had existed. It should be terrifying. Instead, Jake felt something else entirely. He felt ready. The 72 hours passed in a blur of meetings, arguments, and preparations. In the end, President Linda Grant stood before the cameras and delivered humanity's answer to the Galactic Council. Her words were simple and clear. We welcome friendship as equals, but we bow to no one. The Council's response came 6 hours later. Commander Jake Morrison was in the briefing room when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the bridge of the Defiant, his crew already at their stations. On the view screen, the Mars Colony Supply Station designated Olympus Hub simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a bright point of light against the red planet's surface. The next moment, nothing remained but expanding debris. What happened? Jake demanded, gripping the edge of his command chair. Lieutenant Amy Harris replayed the sensor data, her hands shaking slightly. The Council sent a single ship. It didn't fire any weapons we can detect. No energy beams, no missiles, nothing. But look at this, she magnified the feed. The station just pulled apart. At the molecular level, like something reached inside and tore every atom away from its neighbors. 300 people had been on that station. 300 colonists, engineers, families. Now they were dust scattered across Martian orbit. The Council's message played across all human frequencies. Vex Thran's crystalline form appeared again, but this time there was no pretense of diplomacy. This is the consequence of Defiance. Your station was destroyed through gravitational manipulation. Your shields cannot stop it. Your weapons cannot counter it. You have 56 hours remaining to reconsider. Choose wisely. Jake felt sick. He had known war was possible, but seeing it happen, seeing innocent people erased so casually, made it real in a way nothing else could. Captain Ben Cross called an emergency meeting of all ship commanders. Jake piloted a shuttle to the defense headquarters on Luna, where military leaders from across the solar system had gathered. The mood in the room was grim. They're not trying to conquer us, Cross said, pulling up tactical displays. They're trying to break us. One demonstration at a time until we surrender out of fear. Then we show them humans don't break easily, said Colonel Ryan Foster. He was head of the Strategic Defense Initiative, a classified military program that most people did not even know existed. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. We've been developing something. It was theoretical, but after the Council's arrival, we accelerated testing. Foster brought up schematics on the main screen. We call it the resonance drive. Dr. Blake's team designed it based on quantum field theory. The Council ships use exotic matter to power their faster-than-light engines and their gravity weapons. Exotic matter is incredibly efficient but also incredibly unstable if you know how to disrupt it. Dr. Henry Blake stepped forward, looking exhausted but excited. We can create a resonance field that interferes with exotic matter containment. If we get close enough to a Council ship and activate the drive, their own power source becomes their weakness. It should cause cascading failures across all their systems. Should? Jake repeated. You mean it's not tested? We tested it on samples of exotic matter we collected from deep space anomalies, Henry explained. It worked perfectly in the lab, but we've never tried it against an actual Council vessel. President Linda Grant, attending the meeting via secure link, spoke up. Do we have any other options? The room fell silent. Finally, Cross shook his head. No, Madam President. Their technology is too far advanced. In a straight fight, they'll dismantle our fleet as easily as they destroyed Olympus Hub. Our only chance is to use their own power against them. Then we use it, Grant said firmly. Prepare every ship we have. If we're going to fight, we fight smart. Over the next 2 days, engineer Nicole Brennan worked without sleeping. She was a genius with spacecraft systems, able to improvise solutions that other engineers said were impossible. Now she was installing resonance drives on every military vessel that could carry one. The modifications were rushed, dangerous, and completely untested in combat conditions. Jake watched her work on the Defiance engine core, her hands steady despite the exhaustion written on her face. Will it work? He asked quietly. Nicole looked up, wiping grease from her forehead. Honestly, I have no idea, Commander. The theory is sound, but we're betting everything on equipment that might explode, might do nothing, or might actually save our lives. Those are pretty much the 3 options. I'll take those odds, Jake said. While the military prepared, Lieutenant Amy Harris made her own discovery. She had been analyzing every transmission from the Council, looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything useful. What she found changed the situation completely. Commander, you need to see this, she said, pulling Jake aside during a break in preparations. She played an encrypted communication she had intercepted between Council ships. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. The Zinthari delegates continue to protest the aggressive approach, one voice said. Let them protest, another replied. The Velcros control the council. What we say becomes law. If the humans resist, we make an example of them like we did the Krellians, the Voth, and the others. Amy paused the recording. They're not unified. Some species in the council don't agree with this approach. And more importantly, they've done this before, multiple times. Any species that stands up to them gets destroyed as a warning to everyone else. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many species have they eliminated? I found references to at least 7, but there might be more. The council doesn't just conquer. They erase. No survivors, no records, nothing left behind. Then we make sure humanity doesn't become number 8, Jake said quietly. The council's deadline expired with no response from Earth. Lord Kaelvin, a Velcros noble assigned to oversee humanity's integration, arrived with an occupation fleet. His vessel was smaller than Vex Thran's diplomatic ship, but bristled with weapons that sensors could barely identify. His first transmission was broadcast across the entire solar system. I am Lord Kelvin, appointed governor of the human territories. All military vessels will power down their weapons immediately. All military personnel will report to processing centers for reassignment. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your population centers, beginning with your capital cities. You have 1 hour. On Luna, in the command center, President Grant looked at the assembled military leaders. Gentlemen, ladies, this is it. We fight now, or we cease to exist as a free people. I know the odds. I know what we're risking. But I also know that if we surrender, we're not just giving up our freedom. We're proving to every other species in the galaxy that the Council can't be challenged. We have a choice, die on our knees or stand up and show them what humans are made of. We stand, Colonel Foster said simply. Every head in the room nodded in agreement. The order went out across all human vessels. Activate resonance drives and engage the enemy. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant as his ship's new drive hummed to life. The sound was different from normal engines, a thrumming vibration that you felt in your bones rather than heard with your ears. Around him, 24 other human ships did the same, their formations loose and seemingly random compared to the precise geometry of the Council fleet. Lord Kaelvin's response was immediate and contemptuous. Foolish creatures. You resist with inferior vessels and primitive weapons. I will enjoy teaching you the price of defiance. The Council ships moved forward in perfect synchronization, preparing to tear apart the human fleet the same way they had destroyed Olympus Hub. Jake could see the gravitational distortions forming around their vessels, weapons charging, ready to rip his ship apart at the atomic level. All ships, activate resonance drives on my mark, Jake ordered. His hand hovered over the control. This was it. Either humanity had found a way to fight back, or they were about to die proving that courage alone wasn't enough. Mark. Across the human fleet, resonance drives reached full power. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Council ships jerked violently, their perfect formations breaking apart. Warning lights blazed across their hulls as internal systems began failing. The gravitational weapons dissipated harmlessly, the exotic matter that powered them destabilized by the resonance field. On the Defiance bridge, Amy let out a shocked laugh. It's working! Their ships are dead in space! But Jake knew they had only bought themselves a moment. All vessels, press the attack while they're vulnerable. Target their weapon systems and engines. The human ships surged forward, not in neat formations but in seemingly chaotic patterns that made no tactical sense to anyone trained in traditional warfare. Some ships went high, others low. Some charged straight ahead while others circled around. It looked like panic, like disorder. It was anything but. Captain Ben Cross, coordinating the battle from Luna, had designed what he called protocol chaos. Human ships didn't follow predictable patterns because human commanders didn't think like Council tacticians. Every ship captain was given one simple order: be unpredictable. Do what makes sense to you, not what makes sense to the enemy. The Council fleet's tactical computers, designed to counter centuries of established warfare doctrine, couldn't process the apparent randomness. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the damaged cargo bay of the Defiant, looking at what remained of a Council fighter they had managed to capture during the battle. The ship was smaller than a human shuttle, but its technology was centuries beyond anything Earth had produced. Dr. Henry Blake and his team were carefully taking it apart, learning everything they could before the Council sent their next attack. Because everyone knew the next attack was coming, Lieutenant Amy Harris had been monitoring Council communications constantly since the victory at Luna. What she heard made it clear that humanity's triumph had done something unexpected. It had started conversations, arguments, debates among species that had not questioned Council authority in generations. "Commander, you need to hear this," she said, pulling up an intercepted transmission. The voice belonged to a Zinthari, one of the insectoid species Amy had identified earlier as opposing the aggressive approach toward humanity. "They defeated a Council occupation fleet," the Zinthari was saying. "A juvenile species with primitive technology beat Lord Kelvin's forces. If they can do it, what does that say about Council invincibility?" Another voice, this one Velcros, responded with anger. "It says nothing. The humans use tricks and deception. War Marshal Thexvor will correct this error permanently." Amy paused the recording. "War Marshal Thexvor commands the Council's primary military forces. He's never lost a battle, and according to our intelligence, he's gathering an extermination fleet." Jake felt the weight of those words. Not an occupation fleet this time. An extermination fleet. How long do we have? Best estimate from deep space sensors. 3 weeks. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. 3 weeks to prepare for an enemy that had spent millennia perfecting the art of erasing entire civilizations. Jake knew the resonance drive had given humanity an edge, but it would not be enough. Not against the full might of the Council's military. President Linda Grant called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. Jake attended via holographic link, along with Captain Ben Cross, Colonel Ryan Foster, and dozens of others who would shape humanity's response to the coming storm. "We all know what we're facing," Grant said, her face appearing on screens across the room. "An extermination fleet that will make Lord Kelvin's occupation force look like a training exercise. We can't win through military might alone, so I'm asking all of you, how do we fight an enemy we can't match?" Colonel Foster spoke first. "We hit them before they hit us. Take the fight to their staging areas, make them bleed for every mile of space between us." "That's suicide," Captain Cross countered. "We'd be fighting in their territory without support against superior numbers." "But it would buy Earth time," Foster insisted. "No," Lieutenant Amy Harris said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She rarely spoke up in high-level meetings, but now she stood with a determination Jake had never seen in her before. "We're thinking about this wrong. We can't beat them militarily, not in 3 weeks. But we can beat them another way." She brought up images on the main display showing dozens of alien species. "The Council rules through fear and the perception of invincibility. We broke that perception when we beat Lord Kelvin." Other species noticed. "They're talking about it. Some are even questioning Council authority for the first time. What if we don't just fight the Council? What if we show the entire galaxy that the Council can be beaten?" President Grant leaned forward, interested. "You're talking about information warfare." "I'm talking about revolution," Amy said. "The Council has kept power by making sure no one believes resistance is possible. We prove them wrong by broadcasting our victories across the galaxy. We show every suppressed species that freedom is achievable." "And how do we broadcast to the entire galaxy?" Cross asked. Amy smiled grimly. "We take over one of their communications hubs." The room erupted in arguments. It was impossible. It was too dangerous. It would never work. But Jake looked at Amy's face and saw something that made him believe. She had found a way to turn humanity's greatest weakness into a strength. They could not win through force, but they could win through inspiration. "It could work," Jake said quietly. The room fell silent. "If we can get into one of their hubs and broadcast our story, show other species what we've accomplished, we might start a chain reaction the Council can't control." President Grant studied the faces around the room. Finally, she nodded. "Put together a plan. We'll run both strategies simultaneously. Foster, you prepare a defensive fleet to protect Earth. Morrison, you lead a strike team to infiltrate a Council hub. If we're going down, we go down fighting on every front." Over the next week, Jake assembled his team. Amy would handle communications and translations. Nicole Brennan would manage the technical infiltration needed to hack alien systems. He also requested Captain Marcus Webb, a former intelligence operative who had spent years studying alien cultures and spoke several non-human languages. Marcus was a quiet man in his 40s. with sharp eyes that seemed to see through everything. When Jake explained the mission, Marcus just nodded. We'll need a council ship to get close to the hub without raising alarms. I assume we're stealing one? We captured a damaged fighter at Luna, Jake confirmed. Can you fly alien tech? Give me 6 hours with the controls and I'll fly anything, Marcus said confidently. They spent days preparing. Dr. Henry Blake's team modified the captured council fighter, replacing its weapons with human systems and installing stealth technology that might hide them long enough to reach the communications hub. It was located in neutral space between council territories, a massive station that relayed messages across dozens of systems. The night before departure, Jake stood in the observation deck of the Defiant, looking out at Earth. Millions of lights sparkled across the dark side of the planet, each one representing people who were depending on him. People who had no idea that humanity's survival might depend on a small team infiltrating an alien station. Amy joined him at the window. Having second thoughts? Third and fourth thoughts, Jake admitted. We're about to break into the most secure facility in council space with a stolen ship and a plan that barely qualifies as a plan. Sounds like a typical human solution to an impossible problem, Amy said with a slight smile. They departed at dawn, the modified council fighter slipping away from Earth with minimal fanfare. Most of humanity's attention was focused on the defensive preparations, the massive fleet being assembled to meet the incoming extermination force. No one except a handful of people knew about the infiltration mission. The journey took 5 days. They traveled through council space using captured navigation data, avoiding patrol routes and staying in regions where a single council fighter would not attract attention. Marcus proved to be as good a pilot as he claimed, handling the alien controls with surprising skill. On the 6th day, they reached the communications hub. The station was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any human structure. It hung in space like a vast wheel, its outer ring rotating slowly while the central hub remained stationary. Hundreds of ships came and went, council vessels of every size and configuration. That's our target, Amy said, highlighting a section of the station on their scanner. The central hub controls all incoming and outgoing transmissions. If we can access the main computer core, we can broadcast to every system in council space. And security? Jake asked. Marcus pulled up what intelligence they had gathered. Heavy, probably impossible to overcome with force. But the council has ruled so long without challenge that their security focuses on external threats. They're not expecting infiltration from inside their own network. So we walk in like we belong there, Jake said. Exactly. They approached the station broadcasting council identification codes recovered from the captured fighter. The station's automated systems accepted them without question, directing them to a docking bay in the outer ring. As they settled onto the landing pad, Jake felt his heart pounding. They were inside enemy territory now, surrounded by thousands of aliens who would kill them the instant their identity was discovered. The team disembarked wearing modified council uniforms that Nicole had designed based on captured equipment. They would not pass close inspection, but from a distance they might blend in. The station's interior was a maze of corridors in strange geometries that human architecture never used. The gravity felt slightly wrong and the air had a metallic taste. They moved through the station following maps Amy had compiled from intercepted data. Twice they passed groups of council personnel who barely glanced at them. The uniforms were working, but Jake knew their luck would not last forever. The central computer core was located deep inside the station, protected by security systems that Nicole studied with growing concern. These locks are quantum encrypted. I can break them, but it'll take time. How much time? Jake asked. 20 minutes, maybe 30. We don't have 30 minutes, Marcus said quietly, gesturing down the corridor. Patrol coming. 2 guards heavily armed. Jake made a decision. Nicole, start working on those locks. Amy, prepare the broadcast package. Marcus and I will handle security. The guards were Velcros warriors, each one standing 7 feet tall and carrying weapons that looked capable of vaporizing a human. They approached the computer core entrance with expressions of bored. Commander Jake Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he felt like a man watching a timer count down to the end of the world. The broadcast from the communications hub had sparked rebellion across council space, but it had also guaranteed that War Marshal Thexavor would show no mercy when his extermination fleet arrived. Deep space sensors tracked the approaching armada. The numbers made seasoned military officers go pale. 300 capital ships, thousands of fighters and support vessels, enough firepower to sterilize a planet, and all of it heading toward Earth. President Linda Grant called Jake to a private meeting in her office. She looked older than she had just weeks ago, the weight of humanity's survival pressing down on her shoulders. The broadcast worked better than we hoped. 7 council species have openly protested our treatment. The Zinthari have recalled their military forces from council operations. But HFY isn't stopping. No, Jake agreed. We embarrassed the council, made them look weak. Now they need to prove they're not by making an example of us. Can we win? Grant asked simply. Jake wanted to lie, to offer false hope, but he respected the president too much for that. Not with what we have now. The resonance drives work against individual ships, but HFY will adapt. His fleet is too large, too powerful. We'll hurt them, but in the end, they'll destroy us. Grant nodded slowly. She had expected this answer. Then we need allies. As if on cue, Lieutenant Amy Harris rushed into the office without knocking. Her face was flushed with excitement. Madam President, Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's the Zinthari. They want to speak with us, directly. The holographic display activated, showing a Zinthari delegate. The insectoid being stood on 4 legs with multiple arms that moved in constant nervous gestures. Its compound eyes reflected light in strange patterns. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound surprisingly gentle. I am Delegate Zinkril. I speak for the Zinthari Collective. Your broadcast showed us truths we had long suspected but never dared confirm. The Council rules through fear and deception. We will no longer serve such a power. We offer our support to humanity. President Grant leaned forward. What kind of support? Our bioships can interfere with Council sensors and communications. We also bring you intelligence. War Marshal HFY's fleet will arrive in 9 days. He plans to strike your homeworld directly, ignoring military targets to maximize civilian casualties. He wants the galaxy to see what happens to species who defy the Council. Jake felt cold. How many casualties? If his attack succeeds, complete extinction of your species within 48 hours. The room fell silent. Finally, Grant spoke. What do you need from us? Courage, Zinkril said simply. We are sending 12 ships to aid in Earth's defense. They are not many, but our biotechnology is effective against Council systems. More importantly, we bring you a gift. The Zinthari transmitted data files, shield frequencies and weapon specifications for Council vessels. Use them wisely. After the transmission ended, Amy stared at the data scrolling across her screen. This is incredible. With this information, we can adapt our weapons to punch through Council shields. We actually have a chance now. Over the next week, engineer Nicole Brennan led teams working around the clock to modify human weapons using the Zinthari data. Every ship in Earth's defense fleet received upgrades. Every weapons platform, every satellite, every last missile was adapted to exploit Council vulnerabilities. Dr. Henry Blake approached Jake with a new development. We've improved the resonance drive based on what we learned from the captured Council fighter. The new version has a wider range and can disrupt multiple ships simultaneously. But there's something else. He pulled up schematics. We can overload a ship's reactor and turn it into a directed energy weapon. Huge explosion. It'll take out anything within a mile radius. And the ship? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Destroyed, along with everyone on board. Jake looked at the numbers. How many of these can we build? We've installed the modification on 30 ships. Volunteers only. We're calling it the Sunburst Protocol. Volunteers. People willing to sacrifice themselves to take enemy ships with them. Jake felt sick but also proud. This was humanity at its best and worst, willing to die to protect those they loved. Captain Marcus Webb had returned from the infiltration mission with valuable intelligence about Council tactics. He spent hours analyzing HFY's battle history, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Finally, he called a meeting of the command staff. HFY has never lost a battle, Marcus explained, pulling up records. But look at his victories. Every single engagement follows the same pattern. He studies his enemy, develops a strategy based on their known capabilities, then executes that strategy with overwhelming force. He's brilliant, but he's also predictable because his methods always work. So we do something unpredictable, Captain Ben Cross said. Exactly. We make him fight a battle he can't plan for. Admiral Susan Grant, the president's sister and commander of the ESC Titan, studied the proposed battle plans. You want to use the asteroid belt as a combat zone. Turn the rocks themselves into weapons. Marcus nodded. Council ships are designed for open space combat. They've ruled the galaxy so long they fight like an empire that's never been challenged. We fight like cornered animals with nothing to lose. 4 days before Thexfor's arrival, more allies appeared. The Tevari, a species of energy beings who the Council had conquered 200 years ago, sent representatives. They offered weapons technology and tactical support. Their ships were few, but their ability to manipulate energy fields could disrupt Council targeting systems. Then came the Krelin, a species of aquatic beings who brought advanced shield technology. Then the Sorthal, who contributed intelligence networks that had been secretly monitoring Council movements for decades. President Grant addressed Earth and its growing coalition of allies. We stand together now, not as conquerors seeking dominion, but as free beings refusing to surrender our right to exist on our own terms. Whatever happens in the coming days, know that we face it together. Jake stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching the asteroid belt where humanity would make its stand. His crew was ready. The ship's new weapons hummed with power derived from Zinthari biotechnology. The improved resonance drive sat in engineering, waiting to be activated. And in his quarters, Jake had recorded a message to his family just in case. Lieutenant Amy Harris approached him quietly. The Zinthari just sent updated intelligence. Thexvor's fleet will arrive in 6 hours. They're coming in fast and aggressive, exactly as Marcus predicted. Good, Jake said. Let him think he knows what he's facing. Admiral Susan Grant positioned the defense fleet in 3 layers. The first layer consisted of smaller, faster ships equipped with the Sunburst Protocol. Their job was to inflict maximum damage while drawing the Council fleet deeper into the asteroid field. The second layer included the Allied vessels, using their specialized technology to create chaos and confusion. The third layer, positioned closest to Earth, contained humanity's heaviest warships, including the Titan. Colonel Ryan Foster commanded the ground-based defenses. Every weapons platform on Earth, the Moon, and Mars was armed and ready. Civilian populations had been evacuated to underground shelters. The planet held its breath. War Marshal Thexfor arrived with the precision of an executioner. His fleet emerged from quantum space in perfect formation, 300 ships arranged in a pattern that had crushed countless civilizations. He broadcast a message to Earth, his voice carrying the weight of ancient authority. I am War Marshal Thexfor. Your rebellion ends today. I will not offer surrender. I will not show mercy. You will serve as an example to all who dare question Council authority. When we finish, humanity will be nothing but a cautionary tale told to children across the galaxy. President Grant responded with simple defiance. Come and try. The battle began as Thexvor's vanguard entered the asteroid belt. Immediately, the Council fleet found itself fighting on multiple fronts. Zinthari bioships released clouds of particles that interfered with sensors. Tevari energy beings phased through Council shields to sabotage systems from within. Krelin vessels projected shield matrices that deflected incoming fire. And human ships attacked with a fury that the Council had never encountered. They used asteroids as cover, as weapons, as shields. They attacked from impossible angles. They executed suicide runs that aborted at the last second, only to become real suicide runs moments later when the enemy least expected it. Jake's task force activated resonance drives simultaneously, disrupting dozens of Council ships. The enemy vessels floundered, their exotic matter containment failing, their weapons offline. In those moments of vulnerability, human weapons modified with Zinthari data punched through Council shields like they were paper. But Thexfor adapted quickly. He pulled his fleet back, reorganized, and attacked again with new tactics. Council ships focused fire on individual targets, overwhelming them with concentrated firepower. The human ship Freedom executed the Sunburst Protocol, its reactor overloading to take 5 Council vessels with it in a brilliant explosion. Then the Courage did the same. Then the Liberty. The volunteers were dying, trading their lives for enemy ships. The negotiations took place on neutral ground, aboard a specially constructed station positioned between Earth and Mars. President Linda Grant led the human delegation, flanked by Commander Jake Morrison, Admiral Susan Grant, and Lieutenant Amy Harris. Across the table sat Lord Calvin, Delegate Zinkrell of the Zinthari, and representatives from a dozen other species who had joined the rebellion. The conference room was designed to accommodate different species, with varied atmospheric conditions, gravitational settings, and seating arrangements. It was the first time in galactic history that so many species had gathered as equals, rather than as rulers and subjects. Lord Kylvan spoke first, his crystalline voice carrying notes of something humans might interpret as regret. War Marshal Thexvor believed overwhelming force would break your spirit. Instead, it broke his fleet and exposed the Council's weakness. We come now to discuss terms. President Grant looked the Velcros noble directly in his multifaceted eyes. We're not interested in terms of surrender. Not yours, not ours. What we want is a complete restructuring of galactic governance. Kylvan's internal light patterns shifted in what might have been surprise. You seek to dictate policy to civilizations that have ruled for millennia? No, Grant said calmly. We seek to establish a system where no one dictates to anyone, where all species have equal voices and equal rights, where authority comes from cooperation, not domination. A Velcros military commander beside Kylvan made a sound of disgust. Impossible. The galaxy requires order. Lesser species lack the wisdom for self-governance. Lesser species. Amy spoke up, her voice sharp. You mean species you've subjugated for so long you've forgotten they were ever free? The Zinthari built interstellar civilization while your species was still learning to use fire. The Tavari understood quantum mechanics before any of you reached space. You don't rule because you're superior. You rule because you claimed power and eliminated anyone who challenged you. The Velcros commander started to respond angrily, but Kylvan raised a hand to silence him. Perhaps we have grown arrogant. Your species has demonstrated capabilities we did not think possible. You adapted faster than any race we've encountered. You turned your disadvantages into advantages. You inspired rebellion across our empire. He paused. You shattered our certainty that we knew best. So what happens now? Asked a Tavari representative, its energy form pulsing with cautious hope. President Grant pulled up a document her team had been working on since the battle ended. The Treaty of Terra. It establishes the Galactic Assembly to replace the Galactic Council. Every species gets equal representation. Decisions require majority approval, with protections for minority voices. No species can be forced to surrender its sovereignty. No military force can be used to compel obedience. Chaos, the Velcros commander said flatly. Different species have different needs, different values. Without central authority, the galaxy will fracture. Or maybe it'll learn to cooperate, Jake said. You've ruled for 12,000 years, and how many species have you driven to extinction? How many rebellions have you crushed? That's not stability. That's oppression enforced through violence. Lord Kylvan studied the treaty document for a long time. The Velcros Empire will resist this change. They will see it as weakness. Then they'll learn the same lesson the Council learned, Admiral Grant said firmly. That authority taken by force is authority that will eventually be challenged. You can fight another war, lose more ships, watch your empire crumble, or you can be part of building something better. The negotiations continued for 3 days. Every point was debated, every clause examined from multiple perspectives. The Velcros delegation argued for maintaining some central authority. The Zinthari pushed for complete autonomy. Smaller species worried about being dominated by larger neighbors. Humans insisted on protections for technological and cultural development. During a break, Jake stood in the observation deck watching Earth rotate slowly below. Amy joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Think they'll accept the treaty? She asked. Jake took the coffee gratefully. Some will. Others won't, but enough will that it'll work. The Council's unity is broken. Some species saw their chance for freedom and took it. Others are tired of fighting wars to maintain someone else's empire. The Velcros are the problem, Amy said. They built the Council. They controlled it. Accepting equality means giving up everything they've known for thousands of years. People adapt or they die, Jake said quietly. The galaxy's changing whether they like it or not. On the 4th day, Lord Kylvan made his announcement. The Velcros Empire cannot accept these terms in their entirety. However, we recognize that the old order is unsustainable. We propose a transition period, 5 years to implement the new assembly structure, while maintaining some council oversight to prevent chaos. It was a compromise. Not perfect, but workable. President Grant consulted with her advisors, then nodded. We can accept a transition period, but with conditions. Any species that wishes to join the assembly immediately can do so. The Council's military forces are disbanded and replaced with a defensive force accountable to all member species, and any species currently under Council rule can hold a vote on whether to remain or seek independence. More negotiations. More compromises. Finally, after 2 weeks of intense discussion, the Treaty of Terra was signed by representatives of 43 species. The Galactic Council was officially dissolved. The Galactic Assembly took its place. Not everyone accepted the changes. The Velcros Empire fragmented, with some factions embracing the new order while others retreated to their home systems, refusing to acknowledge assembly authority. 3 council species rejected the treaty entirely and closed their borders, but the majority joined, hopeful that cooperation might work better than domination. 3 months after the battle, Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant, now fully repaired and upgraded with a blend of human and Zinthari technology. The ship was part of the new Assembly Defense Force, a multi-species fleet dedicated to protecting all member worlds from external threats and internal conflicts. His crew had expanded to include alien members. A Zinthari biotechnology specialist worked alongside Dr. Henry Blake in engineering. A Tavari navigator brought energy-based perception that complemented human sensors. It was strange at first, working with beings so different from humans, but Jake found that shared purpose bridged many gaps. Lieutenant Amy Harris had been promoted to commander and now ran the Assembly's Diplomatic Communications Division. Her gift for understanding alien languages and cultures made her invaluable in negotiating the countless small conflicts that arose as the galaxy adjusted to the new order. Engineer Nicole Brennan led a joint research initiative combining human innovation with alien knowledge. The technologies emerging from her labs were revolutionizing everything from faster-than-light travel to medical science to terraforming. Free exchange of ideas, it turned out, accelerated progress, far faster than the Council's controlled monopoly on advanced technology. Captain Ben Cross retired from active military service to teach at the new Assembly Academy on Mars. The Academy trained beings from dozens of species in everything from military tactics to diplomatic negotiation to scientific collaboration. His first graduating class included humans, Zinthari, Tavari, Kreelan, and representatives from 5 other species. Admiral Susan Grant commanded the Assembly Defense Force from Unity Station, a massive new facility orbiting Earth. The station served as both military headquarters and diplomatic center, where species could meet as equals to resolve disputes and plan joint initiatives. Her fleet included ships from 20 different species, all working together to maintain peace. Colonel Ryan Foster was appointed as Earth's representative to the Assembly Security Council. His experience planning humanity's defense now went toward preventing conflicts before they required military intervention. He worked closely with representatives from other species to develop early warning systems and mediation, protocols that President Linda Grant addressed. The first official session of the Galactic Assembly 6 months after the Treaty of Terra was signed. Leaders from 47 species attended either in person or via holographic link. The chamber was vast, designed to accommodate the incredible diversity of galactic civilization. 6 months ago, we fought a war that should have ended in humanity's extinction, Grant said. Her words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. Instead, it ended with the birth of something new. Not a human empire replacing the Council's rule, but a cooperative assembly where all voices matter equally. She gestured to the assembled delegates. We face challenges ahead. Species that reject the Assembly's authority, pirates and raiders taking advantage of the transition period, internal disputes between members with different values and needs. But we face these challenges together, as equals working toward common goals rather than subjects obeying a distant authority. The Council ruled through fear, Grant continued. They believed power came from the ability to destroy those who disagreed. We're building something different. Power shared is power multiplied. Knowledge shared is knowledge that grows. Freedom defended together is freedom that lasts. The chamber erupted in applause, each species expressing approval in their own way. The Zinthari create,